reason I wasn't ready. Big nightmares for you and me. Another key change, oh God, oh no. Big nightmares for you and me.
All right, Gig Nightmares. Loving it. Great time. Here we are today with Jeff and Sarah from Mindmaze. How are you guys doing today?
Good.
We're pretty good. How are you?
Staying busy. So I'm trying to remember, because I've seen you guys a number of different times. I think the first time I saw you guys was opening for Motley Crue at Sands Bethlehem.
Yes, that was a while ago. It's funny that show could definitely fall into this category for a number of reasons.
Really?
But I mean, in general, it was a great experience, but there was just a lot of red tape details to have to worry about that when we were new as a band. This was literally one of our first really kind of bigger gigs we did after Mindmaze formed, and there was just a lot we weren't expecting as far as particularly how strict they were going to be security-wise with the band.
I guess they played 2 nights in a row at that venue, and we did the second night. And I guess there was a different band that opened the first night that got the gig through similar kind of circumstances that we did. And I kind of heard through the grapevine that there was some reasons that the band really on the second night made extra efforts to make sure that the support band and all of their people stayed as far away as possible, almost. That I don't know if the and I don't even remember who the band was. I'm obviously not trying to say anything specific about anyone, but I kind of got the vibe that maybe they had been trying to be a little too encroaching on their personal space, trying to we can meet them, they're famous, and we were just kind of there to do our thing. For us it was just a gig,
Sure.
It would have been cool if the opportunity was there, but for us it was just showing up and playing. And it's we weren't even allowed to be in there until basically the moment we could basically load our gear on stage, and we more or less lost all of our access privileges the second we got off.
They basically threw us out immediately. So that was kind of we weren't really expecting that, and there, especially for a gig that size, and for us at the point where we were as a band, it was a little bit shocking to have to deal with that much stuff. But I mean, it was still a good experience overall, but not what we were expecting in our heads.
Yeah, it's you guys have gotten to open for a lot of national acts, so I'm assuming that sort of experience isn't as common then.
No, and that's one thing we can honestly say, thankfully, with a lot of the bands we have played with, there really haven't been very many negative, we had to deal with somebody who had a huge ego, or some crazy rock star, somebody who was rude to us. There wasn't a whole lot of that, thankfully.
Yeah, we've generally been pretty fortunate that a lot of the bands we've either toured with or done singular local support gigs with were honestly really nice. A lot of them were actually really, really cool and some of them stayed supportive of us, which is really awesome.
Yeah, I remember you're pretty close still with Paul from Saxon, right?
Yeah, really most of everyone from Saxon, honestly. When they just toured here the last time with Uriah Heep, we got to see them and hang out for a while and stuff. They're super hospitable to the point where I feel bad when they tour around here. I don't want to be the one that asks them, hey, do you want to hang out? Can we get guest list, etc.? And they kind of got upset that we were reluctant to do that. They're no, you guys are our friends,
But yeah, when it comes to bad things that have happened at gigs, it's mostly technical issues with us.
Yeah, that's
So, do you have any good stories from there?
we could probably
there are a lot, but one that I specifically could think of is when we were doing, there have been a number of things when we've done our actual tours where we've gone all over the country, but in 2017 when we were doing our full country support tour of Serenia and Arcona in Chicago, it was the end of the set, and at the end we kind of to get a little crazy and be put a lot of extra effort in for the finale, and I think I went to go and kick my foot or something, do some kind of jumping crazy on stage thing, and I literally pulled our bass player's amp head like off of the cabinet and like from the cable. Like somehow I got caught in his input cable and it pulled the whole amp head off the cabinet and it literally broke his amp. Like it broke the jack.
Yeah,
it broke the jack and the amp. And I mean, I felt awful at the time, especially because like it's the end of the set and his amp's just not working now.
He had to basically play the last 2 minutes just kind of pretending like he was on still. And we were like mid tour. That was maybe like 7 gigs into like a 17-date tour. So since we couldn't really take the time out to have anything really repaired, thankfully we were prepared for stuff like this, but like he just went direct, you know, for pretty much the rest of the tour, which I think he would have preferred not to do. I prefer not to do that either, just because I like speakers on stage.
Sure.
I like it to sound like there's, you know, not to like the cliche thing is always like, you know, like sound, whatever, I don't know. But I can't think of the term that I want to use, but like speakers pushing air, you know, is what everyone always says. But
sure.
Yeah, like I prefer to have a bass cab on stage, or I prefer to have a guitar cab on stage or whatever. But yeah, we made it work. For me, the thing that is, I mean, I could probably think of 10 examples, but for me, the issue is always unplugging myself. Like it's never like a huge tech thing that like if we're on a tour like something breaks really. I've been pretty fortunate in that department, but like so many gigs I've unplugged myself, and like some of them aren't even things that having like a wireless unit between my board and the guitar would have even prevented, because I've unplugged myself from the other end of the board, like going into my amp. I've unplugged that end of my or I've somehow I have pretty big feet, and I've like unplugged patch cables on my pedal board by accident, by like my feet getting to, and like that's the worst too, because when you're like your main cable comes unplugged, you can usually immediately be like, okay, that's the problem, I'm just going to plug it back in. But when you have like a patch cable or something that like randomly goes down or whatever, it's like, cool, now I have to sit here and troubleshoot, you know, and panic and have like a panic attack about it, you know.
Like I love looking at big pedal boards and everything like that, but if you know you're sound checking everything and then just something's wrong and like you have like 40 different cables to try figuring it out.
Yeah, I'm like a very old school kind of person with stuff, which is good and bad, because like I don't have to worry that like I'm gonna have like computer failure affecting our set. Like I don't really use much of anything that's like digital in any of my stuff, aside from like a tuner or whatever. But the downside to that though is that there's a lot of cables at my feet a lot of the time, and especially since especially for doing support gigs, a lot of times you end up with not a lot of space on stage, and again I say I have big feet, like it's hard sometimes to have any room where I can even walk at all without immediately running into the problem of like I'm stepping all over everything by accident. And yeah, like I think the worst one, and Sarah has probably a story that this is going to trigger for her if I tell this one. About 2 years ago, we played the ProgPower USA festival in Atlanta, which for like our kind of like niche.
Oh, this one's already in my head as one that I have to mention. So I mean,
for like our sort of like niche subculture, subgenre of music that we belong to, ProgPower is kind of like a big deal, and it was something we wanted to do for as long as this band's existed, really. And so, you know, obviously we were kind of stressed out about it, and overall it went great, but I unplugged myself, you know, literally. I don't even remember where in the set it was. I remember what song we were playing, but I just don't remember where in the set list it was. But thankfully at that event, their like crew people are super on the ball, and it was like the first time I've ever had this happen where I unplugged myself, and before I could even fix it, someone ran out and plugged me back, like went to plug me back in. I'm like, wow, these people are like really on the ball about this.
I mean, I when it comes to things that go wrong at gigs, a lot of them have to do with me not remembering where I put something, me not remembering something about something I was supposed to do or whatever, because I mean, yeah, I have ADHD, so I'm really good at just setting things down places and just like not remembering that I did that.
It happens.
And I mean, this specific story isn't 100% about that, but yeah. So just to be safe, I would have been fine for that gig if I probably didn't change my batteries in my wireless mic. But I wanted to be safe about it because I'm like, hey, you know, I don't know. I don't want the batteries going dead in the set. Well, the crew people at the event were like, oh, we'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. So I just didn't even think about it. And then stupidly, like, went to go on stage to start the set and didn't test the mic. And apparently what happened was that the new batteries never got put in the mic. So we're in the middle of the first song at this, like, you know, important gig for us where we're already really nervous. And I, like, go to use my mic and I'm like, oh no, it's not working. And then I'm like trying to turn it on and it's not working. And I'm like, it ended up taking us like several minutes into the song to figure out like what was going on.
Thankfully, it's a 10-minute song, so there was a lot of
It was a long song, so it wasn't like there was no song left, but it was just kind of like, I'm like, oh geez, I'm like, I felt so nervous then, and I had finally gotten myself to a mental place where I was like, yeah, this set's gonna be great, we're gonna do awesome. And like, we start the set out with like me playing keyboards. So again, I wasn't really checking the mic at that moment. Like if I had just had to come on stage to sing, I might have realized it a little bit earlier, but I had to play keyboards before like I got out from the keyboard and had to go out front. And I'm like, oh no. But like, thankfully, since there were good tech people there, they were able to, you know, kind of assist me and help out with that. And it was only like a momentary issue, but it did give me a lot of anxiety in the moment, unfortunately, but, you know.
I remember the other thing I wanted to say in regards to unplugging myself, which is that, you know, unfortunately, we're a one guitar band, you know, so, you know, I play with like an Iron Maiden tribute. I've played in other contexts with like other guitar players and stuff. And it's like that always feels like a bit of a vacation for me because I don't have to be nearly as worried that if I have a problem that it's like catastrophic. Like same thing with like if I'm, you know, in the middle of a song and I realize my guitar is like for some reason really out of tune, you know. If I absolutely have to in like a 2-guitar setting, you can kind of just be like, all right, I'm going to click the tuner on real quick in a part where it's not super crucial if I'm playing or not and just fix this and move on. But, you know, when you're a 1-guitar band, it's like you got to just like I'll be, you know, trying to just hold chords and like, you know, have certain intervals and stuff that I'm trying to just check for tuning and turn the strings while I can. And yeah, if something comes unplugged, a lot of times it's like everything sounds incredibly naked, you know, like we'll sometimes have parts where like Sarah's playing keyboards or something, but for the most part, you know, we're a very like kind of like meat and potatoes live band like that, where
it's
like
hard to fill in that sort of sound.
If the guitar goes out for you know 30 seconds, it's going to be extremely noticeable.
Yeah. I mean, just last night we were playing down in Philly and my in-ear batteries just died, so I had to go get other batteries. And I'm looking at the set list and thinking, oh, these are all guitar heavy songs. And then I see, wait, we got Walking on Sunshine. No one cares about the guitar in that song. But yeah, like obviously with like a band like you, where it's like guitar heavy sort of stuff, it's you're gonna hear like a bit of that drop out there. Yeah,
it's like the kind of music we play. Like it's very rare that I even get like a section of a song where I'm not playing, you know. We'll actually even try to put them in where they don't even really exist within the studio versions of songs sometimes, just so I can have a little break, you know. Like if we can have a section where it's like, oh, we can just kind of, you know, loop a thing or whatever and have like the bass and drums just kind of fill in for a bit, or have like bass drums and keyboards or something. Like anything I can do to get myself like 15 seconds in a song where I don't have to be playing. And I mean, I don't make it any easier on myself either, because some of our songs I also play keyboards. Like we have a song from our third album that like I played piano on it on the album, and it's kind of like a power ballad sort of thing. And since I'm the one that actually did the piano on the album, for the parts where it's like the real solo feature thing, I want to play it. And then Sarah just plays in the other parts of the song. But like it results in me having to kind of occasionally like do some really quick changes where it's like I have to basically like at the end of the song, you know, have all of my guitar stuff ready so that at the exact moment I just roll down my volume and go back to playing the piano part. But yeah, that's led to some fun stuff too. I think actually literally the last show we did, I used the transposition function on my keyboard for a song in the set prior to where we were. Well, actually, no, I remember what it was. I wanted to, I don't use like a super full key keyboard. I forget how many keys it is, but it's a slightly smaller one. So for some stuff, I'll use like the octave up or down. Well, it was dark on stage, and I thought that I was hitting the octave down. I hit like half step transposition down, and I didn't realize it until like we started the song and I'm just playing by myself. I'm like, this doesn't sound right. You know, I'm like, I don't have perfect pitch, but I can tell if I've heard something like 150 times in one key, I can immediately tell. Usually it's like something about this just sounds wrong. And I don't think I realized until we like go to kick in to the actual song when everything else comes in. I'm like, oh my God, like the keyboard was a half step off the entire time. But yeah, I don't know. I like being the kind of band that can be like flexible enough to at least just like roll with stuff, you know, like since we don't play to a click live and we don't use tracks, like if we have a problem, like we can always just stop or fill time or whatever, you know. It's like it's a lot easier to course correct without it being like as big of a deal, I think, in that setting.
Sure. Yeah, it's definitely great to be adaptable like that. But it's funny. It's like I got a flashback when you were saying about like unplugging cables and stuff like that. I saw Michael Schenker at the Keswick Theater something like 2 years ago, and I'm kind of surprised that he doesn't do it. But like, you know how like normally you thread the cable through like the strap, so like if you were to step on the cable, you don't yank it out. He doesn't do that, and he ended up stepping on the cable and yanking it from his guitar in the middle of like a solo. It's like,
there you go. You have something in common with Michael Schenker. That's like one of his favorite guitarists. So.
Yeah, a lot of people always give me crap about the fact that like I don't intentionally not do it, but I sometimes just won't have my string ends cut on my headstock.
All right.
Like
I've already had one poke me in the forehead and like draw blood.
It's not
at a show.
It's not normally a huge deal because like I'm stage left. There's normally no one to my left. So if I don't cross over anyone, it's unlikely that my headstock's going to be like right in someone's face. But sometimes on the fly, like we've gotten to a gig and gone to load in, or we're talking to like the other bands on the show that maybe we're sharing some backline with, and like for convenience, we'll just be like, yeah, whatever. I'll swap sides with our bass player if it makes the show like infinitely easier.
Yeah.
But then sometimes that leads to like weird things that we don't account for, where it's like something is in someone's way that they're never like expecting to be there. But yeah, I have a lot of friends that jokingly will give me crap because I'll like post videos of me playing guitar at home a lot, and especially like if I'm not playing a gig. I never bother to cut them. Like if I'm not playing a gig, I will almost never bother to cut the string ends off. And I noticed at one point, I didn't do it because of him, but I noticed at one point that Michael Schenker often leaves them on too. So that's always my like crutch, is when people give me crap. I'm like, shut up. One of my favorite players does it. So if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me.
It's kind of difficult, like especially like when you're playing smaller stages, trying to account for sort of stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big.
I think when it comes to like stage size, there's been some interesting ones, but like the funniest one in most recent times, I think, is when we played at the Debonair Music Hall, like with Blaze Bailey, like from Iron Maiden, and there was like no room on stage, like literally like not even enough room hardly for us all to literally stand in one spot. Like it was just a combination of the venue and the stage size, and just, obviously, the headlining bands like to have their stuff set up already, which I totally understand, because we've already been in that position where if we're the headliner, it makes so much easier to have the stuff already there. But that one was just comical. I'm like literally balancing on the monitors, just trying not to fall off the stage because there's so little space. There's been many of those kinds of situations though, but that's probably the worst I can think of recently.
The one, this is going back a bit further, though honestly only about a year further than that, was in 2017 when we did that tour with Arcona and Serenia. The first,
the New York
yes.
show. Oh, God.
There were a lot of venues on that tour that were like pretty decent sized stages and decent rooms, especially in Canada. Like Toronto and Montreal were like theaters, which was great. But the first show, literal first show of the tour was in New York at the studio at Webster Hall. Like they have 3 rooms at Webster Hall, and there's like a big room which I think is maybe 1,500 capacity, and then there's like the Marlin room. I think they've remodeled the venue since, so this might all not even be there anymore. And there's like a place called the Marlin room, which was maybe 600 capacity, and then the studio room in the basement, which I think held 250. And it was pretty much sold to capacity the night we played, which was cool, like starting a show on a full room, basically. But the stage, very small. Like, honestly, having... And the thing is, on that tour, they, like, the headliners made it pretty easy because the 2 co-headliners shared a drum kit, and one of the bands didn't even use any cabs on stage. So there was not a lot of gear that we had to set up in front of. But it was the first night of the tour, and we actually did that tour as a 5-piece with a live keyboard player, which we'd only done 2 days-ish of rehearsals with prior to doing the tour. So we hadn't really worked out exactly like where stuff was going to go to begin with. And then on top of that, we had like 0 space. And it was, like I said, first show of the tour. Everyone was just incredibly flustered, and there was just no space. And the thing about that tour, too, was we weren't even the first. It wasn't just like we were the only support. There was a band on that bill below us. So we didn't even really get to, like, we didn't get a sound check most nights because it just didn't make any sense. Like, the headliners would do their thing, and then we'd basically get the first band set up. Yeah. A lot of nights they used our drum kit at least, so it's like that was in place. But everything else kind of had to be set up on the spot. So it's like we didn't even realize till we got up there. It's like, cool, we're not moving at all. Like, we're just like, I'm just going to stand in this one spot the entire time. And like, we like to move around a lot when we play.
Yeah.
I don't even think the thing about that was like, being on stage with no space was the worst. But what really got to me about that was the area that they had for everyone to stage their gear was so packed you couldn't even walk through the room. Like, it was the biggest fire hazard I've ever seen to just see. It was just gear, like, and stuff and bags and whatever, just like all over the floor, like packed in so tight, like you couldn't even walk. It was crazy. And I remember being that it was the first night of the tour, being like, oh my God, if we're in for like 20 shows of this, I'm probably just going to lose my mind. But thankfully, most of them weren't
that
like
was the worst one, I think, of the entire tour. And I think that was also the only day of that entire tour where it rained, which didn't make things easier either. Like, because I mean, also Manhattan in terms of like logistics for parking and loading and unloading, and I think that was also one of those shows where like the show had like a hard 11 o'clock curfew, and the club like immediately became like a dance club. So it's like
that's been a lot of shows that we've done. Like,
we were trying to load out while people are getting that thing started up.
Very used to that.
But yeah, I was like, there's many of those. Another show on that tour was like when we played in Chicago. That happened at that venue after the show. But what was exponentially awful about it was the fact that we had to load up and down 2 whole flights of stairs, which, like, if anyone that's ever had to do that knows it's like literally the worst, because I mean it's just you're like
there's a handful of particular staircases at particular venues that will just like haunt my nightmares forever, honestly. Like that's one. Also on that same tour, we played a place in Portland where not only did we have to load up steps to load in and load out, it wasn't even like you went up the steps and then you're just like at the entrance to the room or whatever, like it was in Chicago. It's like we had to load up like a flight or two, I don't remember, of stairs. And then we were like rooms away from where the actual entrance to load anything on stage was. It was a very, very bizarre building. Like, I'm sure it was one of these places that, like, it was an old building that was probably, you know, put there like over 100 years ago, and they had like just completely reconfigured the thing into a venue. Like, it wasn't originally a venue. So it's like we're wheeling stuff through like what feel like random rooms of an old house. Like, it was really bizarre. That one was really rough. I also know we played a place in Pittsburgh about 10 years ago that had about a double flight of stairs going up to the place, and that was one of these places too where like the show was advertised as starting at 9, I think, and you know, we figured, okay, we weren't the first band, we were the second band on that night, but it was like advertised as like show starts at 9, so we're like, okay, figure probably get there by like 7 to load in. Well, we got there at 7 and found out that the venue was actually running 2 gigs back to back that night. Yeah. And the first show wasn't going to end until 9 o'clock. Or like maybe just before, maybe quarter of. But basically, we weren't even really able to load anything in. And by we, I mean any of the bands on the bill that night. Like, we weren't able to load anything in, basically, until the show was supposed to, like, it was scheduled to start. And it was already kind of a late start for, like, a 4-band bill. So,
yeah, what time would the last band be going on at that point?
Oh, it was like, I feel like the last band was after midnight, start time. But I'm like,
I do remember we cut our set down by like probably a good 20 minutes that night. Like, I think we were supposed to play like 45 and we ended up doing like 5 songs.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm sure you've had gigs like that, like where you show up and, you know, I don't know, there's information that was given or there was an idea of what was supposed to be happening and then it's just not that at all.
Even recently, there's been like a few times where we play places that are also like restaurants and they have tables set up and they say, well, we're not going to move the tables for you to set up until like an hour until you're supposed to start. It's like, no, you can't set up the PA and all of the lights in that amount of time. But
yeah, like that's sometimes I just, you know, genuinely question some people's like what they think is logistically possible in the amount of time that they give you. Yeah. I mean, that was a really good one of just like, what? I mean, and some of these gigs that are like at kind of more like restaurant-y or like atypical venue places sometimes are where I find that you'll run into that the most. But I mean, there's been like several occasions where I'm like, my expectations were not like what actually happened. One thing that kind of comes to mind along with that sort of thing, it wasn't like an official like show, but very early on, like in our existence as a band,
just the radio
yes,
thing.
I was in contact with, I mean, and this guy was really nice, and it was a really awesome like college radio show in New Jersey that was playing our music, and he wanted us to come and do like an in-studio interview and performance. And I'm like, cool, that'll be awesome. So like he's like, yeah, it's gonna be a full band performance in the studio, and we're like, cool.
Also, at the time, I was going to college to get an audio degree, and our school had a full live room, so like attached to the radio complex. So I didn't question the like ability of this to happen. I just assumed it was a given that it was going to be like a very similar kind of situation.
I was just like, oh, like this guy, and I mean, whatever. Since then, you learn things from experiences like this. Like now, I pretty much ask every question, even if I think it's a given. But I'm like, he wouldn't be asking us if this was like not possible. So we drove like an hour and a half out to this college in New Jersey to do this thing and get
loaded all
in
the gear across campus.
Literally like wheeled all of the stuff across the campus to get into the room, to realize there wasn't even enough power in there to plug everything in. There was no way to mic everything. It was just like,
no space.
There was just no space for us to fit. Like, it was just not possible in any way. And it was just so awkward because we're all just kind of like really frustrated that it happened. But like, you know, some people, like when you're dealing with people that are setting up shows and stuff like this, and some of them don't have the background of either being musicians or doing it for a long time, like they just innocently think like, oh, this is definitely possible, but like they just don't know. And I just felt so bad in that moment because I'm like, I don't want to flip out on this guy, but like we drove so far and like we can't even do this thing we were supposed to do. It was just, it was kind of a nightmare. But
if I had a like acoustic guitar with me or something, we could have like improvised and just done something like, because we've done those too, where it's like it's just been like her and I doing acoustic stuff on the radio or whatever. But yeah, I didn't even have anything like that. Like all I had was like, you know, my normal tube amp, you know, head and cab that I use for normal shows. And this is also a lot earlier on where we were like much less adaptable than we've become over the years. Like we didn't, you know, like a few years into us doing this, we started to get more into the idea of like, hey, we can do stuff that's still kind of billed as us, but like it can just be the two of us doing something acoustic, or like we did some full band acoustic shows a couple of times. Those were actually some of my favorite gigs that we've done because they like, I'm a big sucker for like taking material and rearranging it, you know, like, and it was really fun to take all of our songs, a lot of which are like these, you know, 6 to 8 minute progressive metal songs and stuff, and just being like, how do we make this work where it's like our drummer's kind of playing with like, you know, a combination of like brushes and rods, and it's like you know, acoustic fretless bass, and you know, it's like that was a lot of fun. But like also we've gotten a lot better over the years at singing. In the early years, Sarah was basically it, and like I could do some maybe passable backing vocals, but like over time it's gotten to the point where it's like we can pretty comfortably do like 3-part harmonies live now. So like I feel like we grew to be a lot more adaptable to that stuff. But in the beginning it was like, yeah, if we can't do this like the one way we know how, we don't really have any other options. So yeah, what we ended up doing for that particular one is we just kind of converted it to like an all interview thing, and we kind of just I don't even remember what we were promoting at the time. It was probably the second album, if I had to guess. Well, because I know Kalen was still there, so it was probably 2014. So yeah, it was probably like gearing up for the second album to come out. So it's like I think we just kind of like ended up taking about an hour or two and kind of like did like a group interview and played some music or something, like, you know, like over the radio or whatever.
Getting back to a bit of an earlier topic, playing shows with other bands, and I'm sure you've encountered it before, but have you ever done like shows where there's how many different opening bands and whatever, and obviously like there's the common courtesy of like, okay, you finish your set, you don't pack up everything on stage, you get your stuff off stage.
God, this drives me insane. Like it drives me insane. Like it's funny because you say common courtesy, but there are definitely a lot of people who don't seem to be aware of this. Yeah. And it's like, I'm not going to name anyone because this has happened so many times as far as people just taking their sweet time. But, you know, it comes to mind as like we recently, a couple years ago, played a festival, which is even more so than like a regular gig where, you know, some of these more like normal regular gigs that are like there aren't as many bands, the changeover time's a little bit longer and it's not as big of a deal. But we were playing a festival where it was a very like strict time limit, and they were very much enforcing it. Like you go 30 seconds over your time, we're cutting you off. Like, and you know, people are like, if your setup goes too long, your set gets cut, you know, like very strict. Well, that's all well and good until the band before you like takes 5 million years to break down every single thing that they have on stage, and like stuff that isn't necessary for like there were just a lot of props, let's just say that.
And like just a lot of like moving of monitors to very unconventional places, and taking all of the backing vocal mics off stage, like things like that, where it's like when we got up there to set up, it's like we were facing like way weirder of like circumstances than we're like normally used to dealing with. Like a lot of times it's like, yeah, if I just kind of have the space, you know, I can just get if I stage my stuff off stage, I can get everything on stage and set up and be ready to go in like 10 minutes, you know. But we got on stage and then realized like, oh crap, there's no backing vocal mics on this stage. Like there's no vocal mics, there's no mic stands. They're like the monitors aren't where we need them to be. And like, you know, this is like an event that was like already kind of like there was one sound guy basically and really no one moving gear to assist, you know, aside from the bands. So it made it very, very tough.
Someone at that, like, before, that was also, like, someone moved my mic stand. Like, I literally couldn't find it at all before we went on stage. Like, I had set it in the staging area, and I guess somebody at some point, whether it was one of the other bands or someone working, like, on the crew or whatever, moved it somewhere else. I couldn't even find this thing before the set happened. I had to use another one, which was, like, interesting to adapt in the moment, but it was just, like, I don't know. There was just a lot of, like, unnecessary moving around of things and, like, trying to put too much, like, theatrics into something that I'm like, dude, you're playing for, like, a half hour. Like, this isn't, like, your headlining show at, like, you know, Madison Square Garden or whatever. Like, chill out.
I think I joked at some point, like, over the years that, you know, when we were like we started gigging very young. Like the band that kind of eventually morphed into Mindmaze started playing gigs when like I was 14 and Sarah was 16. So like we had a lot of gigging experience from like a pretty young age. And like back in that time period, we played a lot of gigs at like one or two venues that were like extremely notorious for like overbooking shows with tons of support and like having very difficult logistics of things and being very strict and unforgiving and uncourteous. So like we got it kind of beaten into our heads at a very early age that like when, you know, like when the clock is running between like before or after your set, like move, you know, like it's like in a way, it kind of, I think, instilled this unhealthy anxiety that we still carry with us while gigging now, even when we don't need to. But like sometimes I've joked and said like more bands need to be bullied when they're starting out, like about how important it is to be considerate about this stuff, because like I've definitely run into bands like doing this, you know, more over the past 5-10 years, where like these bands never really went through that gigging environment, you know, and I also see it like with people older than us that like we might be playing a show with that are primarily used to doing like more like cover band stuff where like they're used to having like the whole night, like it's their night, they do multiple sets, they, you know, set up, tear down, like they don't have to be fast, you know, with that stuff. So like that's when you usually see the drummers that like they'll be done and like we're having to do an entire kit changeover in a 15-minute window, and the drummer is on stage taking the cymbals off their cymbal stands one by one. It's like, you gotta just carry stuff as fast as you can, you know. Yep. Like it's like disassemble stuff once you get it off the stage. Again, like I feel like I can clear my entire gear off stage, you know, regardless of if I have a keyboard there or, you know, multiple guitars on a rack or something. Like I can pretty much have my entire area of a stage cleared within 3 to 5 minutes of our last note being played. And yeah, I've definitely run into those situations too, where like we're sharing an amp cabinet, you know, like I got to share a cab with the band playing before us. A lot of times it's mine. And you know, I can't really do a whole lot until they move their amp head off the top of the cab, you know? And it's like, I've had to get into some funny situations where I'm like really trying to dance around someone trying to set up, because it's like, they're just taking so much time, and like, you know, they'll get off stage and like go to the bar and get a drink before they, I've seen this happen. Like, it's like, they'll get off stage and go to the bar and get drinks before coming back to the stage to try to tear stuff down. And I'm like,
I think that's also, it's important to have like everyone in the band on the same level with that. It's like, okay,
yes,
we're all working together to like break stuff down and be ready for the next band. I used to play in a band where we would all like, and it would usually just be our shows, like 3-hour cover set or whatever. Like, you know, we would all help out and like break down the PA and the lights and everything. The bass player would never help because he said his job was to print the set lists.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we generally have like a pretty, you know, solid understanding, like when we play gigs. A lot of times, like if we're doing support shows, like kind of the general way we do it is that Sarah will kind of get a little bit of a pass. Now, I mean, if she has like a keyboard that's hers or whatever, like she'll take care of that. But like, we don't usually expect her to do as much, because if it's a support gig, we like a lot of times.
Because I'm the singer, obviously. And like, we don't do work. That's what everyone says. So
a lot of times we don't have like someone selling our merch. So like, we're running a table ourselves. So a lot of times, you know, that like 20-minute changeover or whatever after our set is a really crucial window of time to get people at our table buying stuff. So she'll go out, but like me and our bass player, like the way it generally works is
that's
that,
okay though, because it makes sense, because the merch itself is a job. Like, not just selling it, but like, I always have to bring all the bins with all the stuff and set everything up and worry about whether or not the card reader's working and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, that kind of makes up for whatever gear I might not move.
Yeah, like a lot of times the way it works out is that Sarah's kind of like our merchandising manager, and like I'm more like the gear manager a lot of times. Like, it's like we kind of just oversee different aspects of the process. But yeah, the way we try to do it is that like, as soon as I'm done or our bass player are done with our stuff, we immediately just look to our drummer like, are you good? Do you still have stuff on stage? If not, we'll get back on stage and help him pull his drums off or whatever, you know? So yeah, it's always very bizarre to me when I see people that it's like it's like they don't do anything or they can't do anything very fast. And again, I think over the years that's only increased as we've done some more legitimate touring, because, you know, in that environment, like, it's not about you. Like, you're not, you know, when you're lucky enough to get to go out on a support tour, like, it's not about you and what you want. It's really about the headliner, you know? So it's like, you know,
speaking of that, okay, yeah, I was like, while we're on this subject, I was like, that just really reminded me of something when it comes to other bands and shows. So I said that Blaze Bailey show that we did, there was like no space on stage and stuff, whatever. Like, let's just say, aside from Blaze, we were by far like the most like established band on the bill that had been around for a while. And while it wasn't my favorite thing to deal with, I just was like, whatever, it is what it is. We're going to like do what we can, and who cares? This other band that was on the bill, like, the one guy in the band was like literally flipping out about this. Like, he was knocking on the dressing room door of like Blaze's dressing room, being like screaming about how they took up all this space on stage and this is ridiculous and da-da-da-da. I'm like, dude, this is their show. Like, what the heck? Like, it was honestly crazy. This guy was like unhinged and just going off about how insane that was. Like, and I remember during their set, it was like even more awkward because he was like complaining about it on stage too. Like, he just wouldn't let it go. Like, it was like so uncomfortable. But I'm just like, what planet are you living on that you think that that's like okay to do? Because you're just opening for someone, you know? And I mean, yeah, I don't know. I just don't know where people do that kind of thing. But there's a lot of like other band kind of stories. But, you know, one of my personal favorites when it comes to other bands is like what time other bands feel is appropriate to show up to the gig.
Sure.
Like, one that sticks in my head is when we played in Houston. Like, this was on our own tour, so like it was our headlining tour, and the attendance for that night was not particularly great in general, but whatever. There were still some people there, but we had some support bands. And it's like, I remember being at the venue, and it's like 15 minutes before doors are supposed to happen, and none of the other support bands are there. And I'm just like, are these people are they gonna show up? Like, what's gonna happen here? Because they're just nowhere to be found. I don't even know. Like, I couldn't contact any of them.
I think sometimes, like, you know, your more like unprofessional bands really have this mentality where they think if they show up late, they'll not have to play first. Like, because, you know, like, I don't know how they think the world works, but like, you know, I think some people think that it's like, oh, if we take too long to get there and all the other bands are there, they'll probably start panicking and ask the band that's supposed to play after us if they can play before. And like, it's so stupid. And like, honestly, depending on the logistics or the situation of a gig, I'd rather play first than second. It depends. But like, if it's not going to make a huge difference in terms of set length or the size of the crowd we're playing to or whatever, a lot of times I'd rather play first, because it's like at that point you usually get a much more comfortable setup time, you know. That's like one of my least favorite things to ever have to deal with in like the entire world of gigging, basically, is having to play in like the middle of a bill or whatever, where you don't get a sound check and the first band's not using any of your backlined gear or anything like that. And yeah, like you basically have to load everything on stage and set it up and then load all of it back off in the middle of a gig, like in the middle of a bill. Yeah. And it's like, that's always like one of the worst situations. And like, we'll usually go as far out of our way as we can a lot of times to try to prevent situations like that from even happening on shows. Like, you know, I'm thankful that we have a drummer that's very, very cool with letting other people play his kit. And so, honestly, a lot of times it's resistance the other way around, where other drummers are like, well, I don't want to play someone else's kit. And I'm like, the thing is, sometimes I get it, because look, I've been there where it's like, you know, you agree to use a house kit or you agree to use another drummer's kit, and you show up and it's like crap. Like it's like bad quality, badly maintained. The gear sounds like shit or whatever. But, you know, our drummer takes good care of his stuff. His drums always sound really great. It's like, honestly, one of my favorite things about him is that like his gear sounds really good all the time. And he also sets his kit up in an extremely conventional format. Like, so I'm like, if you can play drums, you should probably be able to get behind his kit and make it work. And he's very flexible with people too. Like, if they're like, hey, you know, I have some concerns, I normally put a tom here, or I don't want this here. It's like, a lot of times he'll work with them and be like, yeah, we can just switch out the couple of things we need or whatever, you know. But it's like, we try to do whatever we can a lot of times. It's like to backline gear and share gear, you know, not even just to cut down on changeover time. It's also to avoid the kind of stuff like she was talking about, where there's few things that stress me out more than playing a show in like a dive bar type venue, and like half the floor space is being taken up by gear being staged. Yep. You know, and there's just no room for anyone, and then the entire place gets real claustrophobic if there's a decent turnout. And yeah, it's very conducive to like things just being uncomfortable or stressful when they don't have to be. So that's the biggest reason why I'm always just kind of like, yeah, the more we can cut down on the number of drums, cabs, etc. being brought into shows, I'm usually all for it.
I used to, in a band I played with a few years ago, we used to open for this one tribute band, and I'm being careful to not incriminate myself. That's the difficulties.
Yeah,
with this
we've
podcast.
Been trying to make sure we omit all the right details.
Yeah. So I used to play shows opening for this one tribute band, and the drummer had huge 80s style drum set with like all the rototoms and everything like that. It was like, it looked cool, but like, having opened for that, there was nowhere to move on stage. So I played a show with him recently with a different band, and we were playing like a benefit show at a theater in South Jersey, and there wasn't going to be a whole lot of people there. I don't think there was more than 10 people there, if we're being honest. But we're doing the sound check. We don't have a whole lot of time for sound check, and we're doing it, and he has all of his 27 drums or whatever, and he's saying, oh, you forgot to mic this one up. You forgot to mic this one. I was like, none of these songs need all these drums. Why do...
Yeah, that's always interesting, like when you like deal with like people that feel like they can't do the gig without like completely unnecessary things.
Yeah, it's like a good musician can be adaptable. Like, sure, you have some of those things. Like, as a guitar player, you don't want to be playing to like a Boss Metal Zone or something like that. But it's like a good musician can find a way to make it work. You don't need every single piece of your gear to be you.
Yeah, I mean, we very much have this mentality when it comes to our approach to gigging that, like, a lot of our gear that we use for certain things changes based on what we're looking at. You know, like, if we're playing something where, like a handful of years now, we've been lucky to play Music Fest here in the Lehigh Valley, and that's always a really great gig because, like, they're they're cool. I mean, like they offer lots of stuff as part of a backline if you need it or want it, but they also have never stopped us from bringing in whatever we've wanted to. And since it's a local gig for us and everyone can just kind of drive and park right on site, a lot of times we'll bring a lot of stuff, because the other thing is that like at minimum you get about a half hour to set up when you play there. The one year we actually were fortunate to have even more time because we were the first band on the stage that day, so we had tons of time. But you know, and the thing is, there's tons of staging areas for gear there too, so it's like it's never been an issue to like have stuff very well ready to go off stage. So with that 30-minute changeover, it's like a breeze compared to other shows. And it's like when we play there, it'll be like a 90-minute set. And since we get that we're getting the opportunity to do like 90 minutes in a professional setting, for those gigs we will go kind of like a little bit more all out, you know. The like usually like largest drum configuration our drummer uses, which still isn't that ridiculous. It's not like what you were describing, but you know, and like I'll usually bring a couple of guitars because we do have songs that will utilize different tunings and stuff. But we don't have to play them, you know? And it's like we have material that utilizes like me playing keyboards, Sarah playing keyboards. Our bass player, Rich, plays some keyboards a little bit too. And he also has like the old school, like the Geddy Lee, like synth pedal rig. So it's like that's more what he uses in that department, which is great, especially as a one guitar band, because that way we can get a little extra like oomph under stuff. But like, for those gigs, we'll bring it all because, you know, especially also with those local gigs, we'll usually have help, you know, we'll usually have people that can help us do all of that stuff. But if we're playing like a support gig where we're playing like 30 to 45 minutes, and especially if we're not even the only support or whatever, it's like we're not bringing all that, you know. Like we will usually be pretty flexible and like kind of like, you know, condense stuff down to where maybe there's only one keyboard rig, and by keyboard rig I mean singular keyboard, on stage, and you know I'll do sets like that and I won't change any guitars. I'll just play one through the whole set, you know. And it's like we like to be flexible like that, you know, because yeah, I mean like we played a gig 3 years ago at this place out in Harrisburg, which went really well, but like the stage was very small. And like, you know, this was in conjunction with other gigs we were doing where we were using multiple keyboards and other stuff for other stuff. And we got there to load in and we took like one look at the stage. It's like, all right, change of plans. And it's like we literally just like flipped the set lists over, rewrote them, you know, kind of changing a little bit of what we were playing, and just were like, no keyboards tonight. We're just doing it all just like completely straight. And it was fine. And it also made sense because the band we were playing with was like more of like a old school, like power speed metal type band anyway. So, no, like, I like being able to do that. I hate feeling like, oh, well, this can only work one way, you know? Like, I'm the kind of person with my approach to guitar gear, too, like, where if I have a technical problem, and this has happened on stage a couple of times over the years, where if I have, like, some mystery thing going on within my pedal board or whatever, if I absolutely have to, I can literally just plug direct into my amp. You know, yeah. It's not maybe ideal, but honestly, like I use a pretty high gain tube amp, and it's like I can just do what I need to do without it. It's like without all the extra stuff. It's like, oh, I might not have chorus or a delay or a wah or whatever, you know, for like a part if like I really want it. But there's just nothing makes me feel more like a, for lack of a better term, a weenie in this context than being like on stage and or being facing these situations and being like, well, we can't play if everything isn't exactly right, you know.
I mean, I keep seeing it like more and more these days, but I'm just like, I mean, I'm sure you've probably been at a show lately where somebody's backing tracks like screwed up. Sure. And they probably had to start the song over because nobody knew where they were or something. Or it just sounded awful because something wasn't working right. And it's like, you know, I completely understand using some of those things to like help fill in the gaps, especially since, you know, a lot of bands are less fortunate to be able to have members that might be able to like, you know, play some of these things physically, or it's just not humanly possible for whatever reason. But like, it's so, it gives me so much anxiety to sit there and like watch people literally have to start songs over or whatever and be like completely unable to do any kind of in the moment like changes, that it's literally like, oh, this isn't working, we have to stop and like completely do the whole thing over. Like, it just gives me so much anxiety. But that there's more and more of that anymore these days, because there's just so many other things now technology wise that, you know, for better or worse, people can use for live shows. And it's just kind of like, it definitely complicates things for sure.
Yeah. I remember seeing Danger something like 10 years ago, and they were using
that's
some
cool.
backing
I've
tracks.
actually never seen like the band.
Yeah, they were pretty good. They had Steve Brown on guitar. The rest of it was like the original lineup, but so they didn't have a keyboard player with them, so they had the backing tracks and whatever. But I don't know exactly, because like, you know, like you pan them left and right to isolate the click track and whatever. Somehow during the show, like the click track was coming through the main.
Oh my gosh.
So you're just hearing like, oh.
Yeah, that's so
completely
awkward.
kills any chance of it possibly being an illusion for people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I was also going to ask, so like with the respective tribute bands that you guys are doing, like, you know, the Iron Maiden thing and then the Queensryche thing, do you ever have people coming up to you asking, oh, can I play this song with you guys?
I haven't had that happen, but the thing is, I haven't been playing with this Maiden tribute very long. I did a couple gigs with them a few years ago when the guitarist that was in the band at the time had some other commitments. I guess like they were doing some shows around Halloween, and he was like in something another band or something else, and so they had approached me and they were like, hey, do you just want to sub in for these? So I did a few gigs then, and I've only officially started playing with them like this year, so I haven't had a lot of time for it to happen yet, but it probably will if I give it enough time.
Yeah, I mean, that hasn't really happened like at a show yet. I know like the last show that we did with Queens of the Reich, like we actually played an open mic night. We were like the house band, which was kind of cool, but it was kind of awkward too, because like it was fine because the way they broke it up was like they basically had us do like an hour-long set to kind of kick off the whole night. And then they had like people come up and do open mic for like a half hour or 45 minutes, and then we do 2 more songs, and then it's like another hour or something of open mic, and then like a couple more songs, and like those like annoying 2-song kind of like little things. It was just kind of so annoying to get off stage and come back on for just like 2 songs.
Yeah.
But I remember leading up to the show, like the rest of the band was like, oh, like there was something about like this guy wants to sing such and such songs with us. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, that's fine. Like, I guess it was somebody knew. And then, like, we get to the gig, like, the day of, and they're like, oh, he's not doing them now. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm glad I still remember the song anyway, because I was kind of in my head, like, mentally not thinking that I needed to be prepared for that. Because I was like, oh, this guy's got to sing it with us. But I'm like, that hasn't really, other than that, it's like, it hasn't really happened. You just kind of, like, when you do, like, tribute shows, you get a lot of people just shouting for songs that are like not the song that you're gonna play.
And a lot of times I'm like, dude, I want to play that one too. You know?
I mean, with Queensryche, there's just such a range of things. I mean, like now we've been doing Silent Lucidity, but it's just like that was for the longest time. Like with me being in this band, we weren't doing it, and it was just I was fine with it because I'm like I like Silent Lucidity, but kind of as a more metal person, it's not like my favorite. I don't sing that one. It's not like the best for my voice. So I'm like, I've actually been playing flute on it because we didn't want to start hauling keyboards out there.
Yeah.
And it's a lot more compact to just have a flute. And it works well. It sounds pretty good. Like I like it. But, you know, when we weren't doing that, it's just like people are like, oh, Silent Lucidity, Jet City Woman. Like they scream for the, you know, songs that you
Whereas like
the most obvious choices.
In the case of the Maiden tribute, it's like if people scream for like, you know, Number of the Beast or the Trooper or Run the Hills, I'm like, do you not think we're gonna play them? I'm like, do you like, you know, like, that's why I kind of like sometimes to do some of those more obvious songs towards the front of a set, you know, because it's like it gets that over with, you know.
Sure.
And a lot of times the more casual people just want to hear those couple of songs and then take off anyway, you know. The thing that was cool with this band is that like I don't want to say like I agreed to do it because of the song list, but the song list that they sent me when I agreed to start playing with them was like good bait for me, because the thing with a lot of Maiden tributes is, and really Maiden in general, is that like I'm kind of weird in that like my favorite Maiden album is Somewhere in Time.
Love it.
Yeah, I'm like it's weird for a lot of younger Maiden fans. I feel like it's a huge favorite. It's become a much bigger favorite album. Like I'm 33, and like when I got into Maiden when I was like 12, I was kind of like led to believe like people don't like this album. It's not very popular. Like it was kind of controversial when it came out because of the synths and how melodic it was. And it's been really cool to see it kind of get like a reappraisal over time, like as people more in like our generation of Maiden fans have kind of started to gradually dominate that conversation. It's been cool, but like a lot of Maiden tributes will not play anything from it except for Wasted Years a lot of the time. Like that's it. That's the one big hit, so that's all they play. And then like these guys sent me a song list that had Sea of Madness and Alexander the Great on it. I'm like, done. I'm like, I'm playing with you guys. You know? That's awesome. I'm like, because I like also like we do like Moonchild from Seventh Son, so it's like there's some cooler stuff like that, which for me is a lot more interesting than just being like, hey, do you basically want to play like Number of the Beast in its entirety with a few other songs? I mean, I love those songs too, but you know, I'd play stuff from almost any era of the band, honestly. Like they're my favorite band, and I'm just like, I'm getting way off topic because I can talk about Maiden now, but
that's all right.
I mean, I think one thing like when it comes to like interesting or bad gigging things that'll happen when you do any kind of tribute or cover stuff is like, have you ever been like playing a song and you just like see somebody staring you down, like looking super unimpressed in the crowd? Look, I could play this song way better. Like I've gotten that vibe a few times doing the Queensryche stuff, especially like being in a band where it's like female singers. It's like you definitely get the like grumbly older dudes that are just like, women can't sing Queensryche, and it's just like they just kind of stare through your soul the whole time.
It doesn't help, I think, that like Jeff Tate is a singer that is like, you know, loved by a lot of people for being so technically good. You know, it's like for a lot of people that love him, like the range and all the technique, like that's a big part of what they love about him. So it's like in my situation, you know, don't get me wrong, obviously guitar is like a huge part of Maiden's identity, but like no one really talks about like Adrian Smith and Dave Murray as being like the most technically amazing guitar players. I mean, Adrian is my personal favorite guitar player, which is what makes this so fulfilling for me to do, but also easy because I just, over 20 plus years of playing guitar, I've developed a playing style that's very in that vein. Yeah. But like no one really comes to like a Maiden tribute gig and like stares at the guitar players like, you better nail this or I'm going to be pissed, you know. Like whereas with the Maiden tribute, one, you'd get it with vocals, and you definitely, I think, get it as a bass player, because it's like, well, if you know, if you can't do that, why are you doing this, you know?
Yeah.
So with the Maiden tribute, while we're on the topic, so like, do you do any like the 3 guitar songs off of like later records?
We actually are only doing 80s material at the moment. I think there, again, like this lineup of this band is kind of new. I've only officially been in the band a little while, and our singer only joined maybe a year, if that, before that. And it's like we're kind of like viewing like this current incarnation of the band as kind of like a little bit of like a new start. So I think everything kind of went back to like sort of square one in a way. We're definitely having a lot of conversations about integrating more of like the reunion era material, but we wouldn't be bringing up a third guitarist to do it. it would be like hard to work out. I mean, I'm friends with another Maiden tribute actually that has a lot of friends of ours from other original bands we know, and I joke with them all the time that I'm like, I'm going to shoehorn my way into the band as the third guitar player, because that way I can, you know, if you pay attention to the way like they handled the parts, I'm like, that way I get to play a few of the Adrian Smith solos and the other ones, you know. But no, that's not like something we've had to tackle. And the thing is, I'm sure even if we integrate one or two reunion era songs, like the first one will probably be The Wicker Man, which is like not a song that utilizes the 3-guitar arrangement really at all. You know, some of them do more than others, but yeah.
Well, we're already going for an hour. Do we have anything else we...
I mean, probably not really. I was like, probably the only other like kind of insane sort of gig related story that I would want to mention is just like us playing the Whisky A-Go-Go, because there were just a lot of things about that was like, yeah, for starters, playing the Whiskey is about as like capitalism's example of like gigging as you could ever get. Like, those people charge you for everything.
Yes.
Like, they charge you to set up your own camera in the place.
Huh?
Yeah, I had to. How much we had to pay them? $40 or something? $30?
It wasn't a lot of money, but yeah, like just on principle, it was a little weird. They're like, they wouldn't let us set up a tripod with our own camcorder on it, basically, to film our own set.
Like, they know that people come there and want videos and pictures of themselves performing there, because of course you do, because it's a legendary venue, and they're like, we're gonna milk them for everything that they have.
But like, at that point, why not just go to someone in the audience and say, hey, here's $5, just watch this movie?
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, I should have done that, but it's just like in my head I wasn't.
We wanted to
like,
make sure we actually had the whole thing from like a decent viewpoint.
Yeah.
Up
yeah,
top.
and it's like they absolutely wouldn't have let somebody in the audience have a tripod, so it's like they would have had to hold stuff the whole time. And like, I would have had to pay them as much as I paid myself to set the tripod up. So I was just kind of like,
yeah, they're also like a venue where like everything is monetized. Like, it's very like pay to play. You know, they'll throw as many bands on a show as they possibly can get on there.
Which I will say up front, we did not pay to play there. Somebody else paid us to go out there. And it was actually a really cool experience, because the guy wanted to set up a show with just a bunch of bands that he really supported and like wanted to have the opportunity, and you know, he paid for us to play there. He paid expenses for us to get out there, so it was like, we absolutely did not pay for all that stuff. It was a really great experience, but like, yeah, there was a lot of that. The whole thing with just the way the venue worked was crazy, but our whole getting there was an insane experience as well. I mean, like, we were supposed to fly out of Newark and our flight got canceled. And, you know, we're in the airport, and I'm literally having a mental breakdown.
We were through security. We were waiting at the terminal when our flight got canceled. Our luggage was checked as well, which included some instruments. I actually had my guitar on me, but our bass player had to check his bass because it was too big.
But, like, yeah, we're there. They cancel it, and it's like, you know, they wanted to just rebook the flight to whatever they chose, like, immediately, which apparently was like a flight that wasn't leaving for like a whole day and a half later. And we had padded the trip with some time so that we couldn't completely get screwed like that. But still, I was just like, And like, our original plan was to fly out of Newark, and we were going to go to Vegas and then drive, because we're like, oh, we get to spend the night in Vegas and we get to see that and whatever. And you know, after me standing in line with the customer service people at the gate for like, seriously, I don't know, an hour and a half, it was insane, because like everyone that was on this flight is like standing at this thing trying to work something out, because nobody wants their flight to leave like a whole day later.
We got denied on the first attempt to get something changed and had to get back in line and basically be like, let's try this again. Thankfully, we got a different person who was like able to actually work with us, because like people weren't really understanding when we were trying to say, we're not trying to go to Las Vegas. We need to go to LA. So it's like, you can rebook us on any flight that gets us to LA as long as it leaves on time. And it's like, thankfully, this other guy was able to get us a flight out of a different airport, and we just rented a car and drove there.
Yeah, we had to go get all of our luggage, go get a rental car, drive to Baltimore, and then got a hotel, and didn't sleep at all, because we didn't even get down there until like midnight or something, and the flight left at like 6 a.m. And like, it was funny because we ended up getting out to LA earlier than we had planned because it was a direct flight then, and it was like we were just like not able to do anything for hours either because we couldn't go to the hotel. It was just like a total nightmare as far as logistics go, but like we made it there and we made it work, and it was just kind of like when it all was said and done, like, and the gig was a really great gig too. There were a lot of people there to see us that we were like kind of surprised with. It wasn't our show, we weren't headlining, but we had the most people there to see us, so it was kind of, that was cool. But like everything that led up to us getting there, it's just like, I think there was a moment like the day that, like the night after we finally got into the hotel and we were all there, where it's just like no one was like speaking, like we just couldn't even talk. We couldn't even talk to each other. We just were like dead. Like no one could sleep. A nap.
We
like,
all collectively napped in the hotel room at one point.
It was like we really just couldn't do anything anymore because we were so exhausted. But I mean, yeah, thankfully it all worked out in the end. But as far as like, that scared me a little bit as far as like flying places to do singular gigs in the future goes. I'm like, ugh.
But yeah, I just kind of wanted to, like, I remember I came out away from that just being like, anyone who ever says that like we either give up on things or that like we were not willing to like really try to make stuff happen, I'm like, this is a testament to the fact that I'm like, we can do whatever we really want to if we really try.
Sure.
But
anyway,
the average concert goer, the average music listener has no idea what goes into all this.
Oh no, for sure. And especially with something like that, like somebody thinks, oh well, somebody took care of expenses and stuff, so it's like all great, like, you know, you don't have anything to worry about. But like, yeah, there was something paid for, but like we still had to deal with all of the logistics ourselves. But anyway, I think that's probably about the time we have. So
I want to thank you too for being guests on my show. This was a great time. Also, you know, just great catching up with you two in general. And,
thanks for having us. It was definitely, you know, fun to look back at the things that in the moment might have been stressful, but like now you can just laugh at those things.
You don't get a lot of opportunities to actually talk about this stuff. Like these aren't the questions people ask you when you do normal interviews. So,
again,
thank you.
Thank you so much.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Gig Nightmares. Gig Nightmares is an independently produced podcast made possible by the support of listeners like you. If you enjoyed this week's episode, we would appreciate if you left a rating and a review for us. Gig Nightmares.